Okay, so in this model, we're going to be talking about the facial muscles, as well as we're going to throw in some extra bonus muscles of the neck and glands on this model as well. And so to start us off, we're going to start superiorly here at the occipital frontalis muscle. And specifically, this is the frontalis, or the frontal belly. And if we were to follow it all the way over the cranium here, we would see the occipital belly, or the occipitalis, right there. Okay, and now turning it. I'm a big fan of this muscle, and it is the temporalis muscle. And if you missed that joke, it's kind of fan-shaped, so that's the way I always remember it. Okay, so now back to the anterior side here. We're going to dive into the muscles around the eye. And so the big one here is the orbicularis oculi. And so you can break up this muscle into two major portions. The orbital portion, which is where my pointer is right now, and the palpebral portion, just like a smaller division. And so the way I remember this is the palpebral portion. It's kind of a tongue twister. It would hurt to palpate, and that's kind of in the name. Whereas you could palpate this orbital portion, and you would assume it wouldn't hurt too much. Moving onwards, we have a muscle that overlies the nose or the nostril, and this is called nasalis. Okay. And then we have some muscles that act on the lip. But before we get there, I just want to talk about the muscle that is around the lip. And this is the orbicularis oris. Okay. And this will be visually important when we start making facial expressions. And so the lips get manipulated by quite a bit of muscles here, and they can be broken up into categories whether or not they raise or lower the lip, which we'll get into in a second. But the first muscle on our trip is the levator labii superioris, and that's what I'm circling here, or trying to outline with my pointer. And beside it, lateral to it, we have the zygomaticus minor. And it's named that because it will actually insert onto the zygomatic bone here. And from the zygomaticus minor, we just go slightly inferior and we see the zygomaticus major, which is this larger muscle here. And so like in the rhomboids, when we had the minor being superior to the major, we kind of have a similar thing here where the minor is superior to the major. Okay. So then deep to that, we have this muscle here called the buccinator, or the buccinator, depends how you want to say it. And that's, like I said, deep to a few muscles. The masseter being one of them, majorly important in mastication or eating. And the risorius muscle, which is this transversely sweeping muscle here. And we have one more on the other side. So if you were to remove the overlying musculature here, you would reveal this one here, which is levator anguli oris. And so gets its distinction of anguli because it will insert onto the corner, whereas labii inserts onto the lip itself. And you'll notice it'll kind of keep true to that nomenclature as we get into the depressors as well. And that's a natural segue into the depressors. So the first one being depressor anguli oris, noticing how it's inserting onto the corner of the mouth, hence anguli, whereas depressor labii oris is going to be inserting onto the lips. Okay. And then lastly, we just have these two rod-like muscles, which is the mentalis muscle. It kind of looks like a soul patch. Now we're going to be looking at a little bit into the neck, and I'm just going to turn my camera down here so we can get a better appreciation of that. The first one being the largest, and named appropriately, is the sternocleidomastoid. And so it gets its name of mastoid from the mastoid process of the skull, which is up here, and sterno from the sternum, and specifically the manubrium of the sternum. And cleido refers to the clavicle. Now, obviously, that's out of the section of this model, but in case you ever forget where the muscle runs. Next, we have the scalenes. I'm just going to spin the model again. And they're broken up into three divisions. We have the anterior scalene, the middle or scalene medius, and the posterior behind that. And if we were to take the skull here and flip it, we would also see the digastric muscles. Di meaning two, because you have two. Okay, and so that's it for our musculature. And just while we're in this view, I'm also going to point out the submandibular gland, just located right here, named appropriately. It's underneath the mandible. We can also see our thyroid gland here on the trachea, anteriorly. And the last gland on our stop is the parotid gland, located just anterior to the ear here. And there you have it.